as I look to the horizon, not a cloud, I've been storming with a scope to call. Seems like it crept up out of nowhere, all around you is not what you foretold. You never see it coming. You see that my mind is the past where you're done. By the time you see you're not surprised.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. This is DSP News. We're here today with Mr. Stuff's DSPGaming Holiday Travel Woes. Apparently, Phil's new girlfriend had a bit of a complication in her travel plans getting the Phil. Now, I was thinking, as some people were thinking, that maybe she'd be flying. But actually, it doesn't look like it. It looks like she was going by bus, which that in itself just opens up the door for a bunch of things. In my own personal opinion, just from what I initially heard, because I haven't actually watched the video yet, it kind of just gives me flashbacks of Leanna all over again, essentially. So, and if you guys follow this channel in any type of way, shape, or form, that means, well, how old is she, and so on and so forth, whatever. Well, we'll go ahead and try to tackle some of that in the video, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys are doing well. Ladies and gentlemen, this is DSP News. Always late, never breaking, unreliable coverage that you can't count on. A GTG network and productions. We all know the slogan, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Ow. Oh my gosh. I really need to get my cappuccino in the morning. Fucking A. Here we go.
Let's talk about a couple other miscellaneous things before we get to the final end of the pre-stream. Miscellaneous, one thing I want to bring up, folks, I almost had a major disaster, which would have really, really fucking sucked if this had happened, and luckily I was able to avoid it, okay? What am I talking about? Travel during the holidays. I'm just going to give you guys a heads up, because I want to help you guys out if I possibly can. It's based off of my personal experience. Every single time in my life, my 35 years on this planet, every single time I have ever tried to travel in the month of December, all right, ever, I've had issues, whether it was by bus, by train, by plane, any of those. There's always an issue. Something goes wrong, some bullshit. Okay.
It's the holiday season, though. What do you expect? It's the most heavy time to travel of the year. You know what I mean? So why wouldn't there be some type of complication? I mean, yeah, some people have it a little bit smoother than others, but you should always expect when you're, if you're planning on doing anything around the holidays, that's going to require you to go from one state to another, that if there's going to be at least a little bit of pushback. It happens. This is what adults deal with, Phil. You should. I know you're just kind of catching up to the rest of us, but that's this happens. This is life, Phil. Let's continue.
Okay. I personally had an issue here where my girlfriend is going to be coming to see me this week, and we thought everything was good. We were assured everything was good, but one particular thing didn't seem right. It was just like, that doesn't sound right. This has never really happened before. Well, why would this happen now all of a sudden out of nowhere? I don't know, And we were thinking about just letting it go. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make a phone call. Let's make a phone call and find out what the fuck's going on. All right. Made a phone call, immediately found out that basically travel companies in the month of December try to do some tricky shit. Well, first of all, let me tell you this. Every single travel company overbooks. The only travel company that probably doesn't overbook are like a private car. If you're paying hundreds to thousands of dollars for a private car, I'm pretty sure they don't overbook. All right. But everyone, again, buses, trains, flights, they all overbook. You'll go to buy a ticket, and it'll say you have a ticket. And then next thing you know, you'll find out, oh, they overbooked. So there's a chance you could get bumped, right? bullshit. Especially if, you're someone like me. Listen, if my girl...
Someone like you that does what? You don't really travel. You don't really have anybody in your life who's willing to come and see you, and let alone, God forbid, you're willing to go and see somebody else. Like maybe your parents. So what about somebody like you, Phil? You mean for your business? I don't know. You don't travel for your business. At least not anymore. And you really should be fighting those taxes more than doing all of this little escapade that you got going on anyway. I'm not saying that you don't deserve some type of reprieve. What I'm saying is that you do owe this money. And as an adult, you should address this money situation before anything else. It makes sense. Or at least it should. Apparently, you missed out on that class. I thought a business degree would take you further, or a science degree, whatever it is that you have. So yeah, tell us exactly in your experiences as it pertains to flying and traveling, things like that, especially in recent years. How do you handle it? Please do. I'm dying to know.
Friend can't show up when she's supposed to show up. What am I supposed to do? Just not work? You know what I mean? Like, oh, I took time off away from my job, which I need to do to pay my bills. Oh, now I'm going to waste a fucking day because some asshole told her she had travel reservations or whatever, and now they decide to fucking, dick around. All right. So I took matters into my...
Wait a second. What are you expecting to happen when she gets there? Does she have her little maid outfit already picked out? Is she supposed to get right to work right away? Does she have a job interview out there that I don't know about and she's ready to get to work? What is it? So what if she's a day late? She's a day late. It just means that you should cherish the time that you guys have together. But let's be honest, Phil. She's not there to be cherished. She has a job to do, and God forbid that she doesn't get to it. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like someone who has hired a maid, and the maid is showing up late. I mean, granted, she couldn't do anything about that, but that's what it seems like. Yeah, it's kind of sucks if, you have a family member or an acquaintance or a friend or whoever it is that you have coming out of town, if they're a couple hours late, even a day late. That does suck. That sucks a lot. At the same time, though, Phil, let's be honest, you don't really care about anybody else but yourself. So, yeah, like... When you talk about these delays and how you're going to be inconvenienced, I feel like it's really more about you than her. Just saying.
Own hands this morning. I made a phone call. I basically found out that this travel place was fucking with us. Basically trying to say that, oh, there was a mistake. Oh, no. It's bullshit. Here's what they do, all right? They overbook. What do? The reason they overbook... Let me explain the overbooking process. Many of you might not even understand this. What overbooking means is that if you have a particular vehicle, whether, again, it's a bus, a train, or a plane, there's a certain amount of seats on all those, right? They know how many seats are available. And when they actually have people pay to travel on these things, they will actually accept more payments than seats that there are in these vehicles. Now, at first you might say, that doesn't make any fucking sense. If a bus has 36 seats, why would they accept 40 people to pay for those seats? Well, there's what they say they're claiming, and then there's the truth of the matter, all right? What they claim is that, this is an efficient business practice, all right? Because we do the math, and statistically we found, doing the math, that there's always a certain number of cancellations per every vehicle, no matter what. Therefore, by overbooking, we statistically prepare for those people who will cancel, and therefore, the vast majority of the time, we fill every seat, and therefore, everyone gets a seat, and we don't end up with vehicles with empty seats. It's very efficient, and everyone...
You're kind of missing the point. Theoretically, he's somewhat right. He's maybe a quarter right. Yes, they do overbook because, statistically speaking, they do expect a few people, at least in every particular bus or plane or so on and so forth, to cancel. Statistically, it will happen. People do change. What they do is they overbook so they can still have this particular bus going at such and such place at such and such time to still be full and still leave on time, despite despite a particular situation, in the fact that, if someone, decides to change their travel plans or whatever the case may be. And more importantly, what we've been doing, well, what the U.S. has been doing for quite a long time, and I assume a lot of places, is the sardine method. Because of how gas is now being used, it isn't like back in Phil's earlier days where they were just frivolous with the shit, and you could get on a plane that may only have 16 people or 20 people when it should be able to hold almost 100, and they would just fly off whatever and no one gave a shit. It's not like that anymore. Now they're trying to make sure, as the airlines, the bus terminals, everybody wants to make sure they're getting the most bang for their buck. And the best way of doing that is to sardine the fucking shit out of all of us to make sure that that gas is being used efficiently, and more importantly, they can stay on their strict time schedules. Now, he's right. It is bullshit that there are going to be some people who are going to be caught up in a different situation. What he also doesn't realize is, in a lot of those circumstances, for busing, for example, you may have multiple buses going to the same place. There may be just a 15-minute delay on maybe the next bus, or so on and so forth. There are some crossover events that come about. But that's just a broad example, of course. You know what I'm saying? That's just a broad example. In my experiences, we just drove, so it is what it is.
One likes it, okay? Bullshit. That's actually not what it is. It's greed. It's greed.
Which means two things, though, too, as it pertains to this young lady friend we have here. A, she's young. And she's young. Doesn't mean that she doesn't have a license. It means she just may not have a car. So it means that she's possibly young. Maybe she just got out of high school. Maybe she's going to university. Who could say? So there's the first thing on that. And second, if she is young, indeed, if she is young, then that means Phil is essentially repeating history all over again. The third thing, and this is what I was, to be perfectly honest with you, because, it is what it is, I would have hoped he would have picked somebody older. Apparently he hasn't. So it may not be an older woman, because she would probably have her stuff together. And this person doesn't sound like she lives in the state. So there you go. Actually, we're not. I can only make a bunch of assumptions on how close that this young lady may live. But she doesn't live close. Not as close as I thought. We all remember the situation with Panda going from her particular state. What was she living in? Pennsylvania or something? From Pennsylvania to Connecticut. This sounds like the exact same scenario. It sounds like the exact same scenario. In the fact that because she isn't older, or she doesn't have the type of, I don't want to bash her and say she doesn't have a lot of life experience, she should be able to have handled this situation, not give it to Daddy Phil. I think, ladies and gentlemen, we may have another daughter in the mix. I'm just saying. I could be completely wrong. It is what it is. But there's something a little bit off about this situation. Hence the reason why he's only seen her a couple of times, or a few times even. So let's keep it going. We'll see what happens.
It's because these companies, rather than caring about the comfort of their customers...
Phil, do you care about the comfort of your customers? Or of your audience? Of course you don't. Just shut the fuck up.
And caring about the fact that every customer who pays for travel reservations gets on a vehicle and gets there in time, they don't care about that at all. None of these actual transportation companies give a fuck. Any company who overbooks is basically saying, we don't care about you as a customer or a traveler. All we care about is our bottom line.
That sounds a lot like you, actually. That certainly sounds a lot like you. So, I mean, it sounds like you're reading from the same manual. You're practicing what you preach. That's what it seems like. I'm just saying. You got to save your house, right? You got to save your business, right? People have heard that for the last couple of years, and you've certainly acted as such. So, why wouldn't these people do the same way? It is unfair to say, despite the attitude that you may get in the airports, that you may get in other travel arrangement places, especially if you're renting a car, that it seems like they don't give a fuck. But that's not the case, because you are their business. So they have to give a shit about you in some way, shape, or form. It's just this is how business works. There are going to be some ups and downs. You know what I mean? In truth, if you book your travel arrangements early, you have, statistically speaking, you have a better chance of avoiding a lot of the problems. Now, keep in mind, don't get me wrong, I've bought plane tickets to go all over months in advance, and I still dealt with some bullshit, or I've almost dealt with some bullshit. It happens, but it never delayed me. I still got to where I needed to go, sometimes ahead of time. You know what I mean? Like, for example, I was supposed to go ahead and visit a friend or whatnot, and I was supposed to leave at I think I was supposed to leave at 3 p.m. Okay, now, because I understand how the airports work and anything, I showed up 4 hours early. In doing so and whatnot, they were like, hey, we can bump you up and we'll put you in the first class for no additional charge. I was like, oh, okay, well, when would my flight leave? Oh, in an hour. I was like, okay, well, I'm ready. Sure, why not? And there you go. And I got to look at very lovely flight attendants and got to drink with some with this old lady next to me telling me stories about some of the husbands that she was married to. That shit was fucking funny. I had a great time with that. I might actually tell you guys that story one day. But I sat there and did that my whole flight, and it was fucking awesome. It was super fucking awesome. I mean, don't be wrong. First class isn't as everybody makes it out to be. It's comfortable. It's definitely comfortable as shit. Food's certainly a whole lot better. But it was cool. It was actually cool. A lot of the people that I was able to mingle with in first class were really just really cool ass people, man. Fucking really cool people. Just people I guess it's one of those things. I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic. You never know who you'll actually get a chance to talk to and vibe with until you do it. And so that's why you should never be scared to talk to people. You should never feel like, oh, I don't know if I can intermingle with these people, or I don't know how these people are gonna react to me. Just be yourself and just say hello. Sometimes that's all it takes for someone to feel comfortable enough to talk to you. Actually, a lot of the time, to be perfectly honest with you. It was a really cool experience, man. It was a really cool experience and whatnot. She was cool. Goddamn, she was cool for someone who was, I think she was a great grandmother at that point. And she was wild. Fucking A. That's someone I'd like to go bar hopping with. Anyway, sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, I can tie that in because Phil's antisocial as shit. But, yeah. So, you'd be surprised. Anyway, there are hang-ups. And there are pluses and negatives to everything. You kind of have to roll with it. But, yet again, this right here is just telling us a little bit more about who this chick is. Or who this young lady is and whatnot. And, I don't know. People who don't pay attention to history, man, are usually doomed to repeat it. And that's what it looks like here. Looks like in a couple years, he's going to be donating another bag of stuffed animals somewhere else. That's what it looks like. DSP News.
So the reason they really overbook is to make sure that every vehicle that they operate is full of passengers and they're making maximum profit. Because let's face it, folks, if they didn't overbook, there may be potentially a time frame when all of a sudden you end up with half-empty vehicles for whatever reason. What about the dead travel times of the year, like the summer, right? Excuse me, not the summer, I screwed that up. The spring. Sometimes in the spring, for particular places, you may have half-empty planes if they didn't overbook, right? Now,
they still kind of do, though, every once in a while. Depends on what state you're flying out of. So, you know what I mean? Because you can't... It happens still. Even to this day, it still happens. That, you may only get, half-empty planes and so on and so forth. It still happens. They just try to reduce it as much as they can. But yet again, they're trying to be more fuel efficient. They're trying to be more efficient with their time and whatnot, with manpower. This is the things that go into running a business, Phil. I understand you don't know anything about that. That's why you felt like you didn't have to pay taxes. But this is what real business owners have to do. Especially if you're part of corporations. You're right. There is a bottom line into it because guess what? They have investors, Phil. You should know that, Phil. You have investors. The difference is you treat your investors like shit. The other difference is with those large corporations and businesses and whatnot, they can't do that. Because guess what? They realize these people are the ones who are providing us the money. And if we fuck up, they leave. And if they leave, they're screwed. For some reason, your Patreon supporters, for example, never figure that out. That, hey, I'm giving my hard-earned money to this guy, so in truth, he should be going forth into what is my best interest. I pay this person to entertain me. This person should be entertaining me. Especially when he says that he has these set up events that I pay money and I can vote on. But why am I not being entertained? Why am I allowing this person to do what they want, and I'm not really getting much of anything out of it. I don't know. It'd be interesting to talk to one of them, though, and find out what their thoughts are on it. But that's neither here nor there.
The flip side of this is the holiday season. All right? During this holiday season, most people who book travel reservations end up going because they're trying to spend time with their family or friends or whatever for the holidays. So it's actually incredibly unlikely that someone who would try to book travel during the month of December would not travel. Most people would go. So overbooking.
But stuff happens, though. People get sick. There are complications with jobs. There are change in plans with other family members not being able to reach certain places. So, dates are getting pushed back or pushed forward. There are variables, Phil. There are variables. Not everybody sits at home by themselves in a fucking 3 or 4 bedroom house and shuts themselves away from the world. And those who do, that's when the cops have to go over there for what do they call those things? For what they call them, they have a word for it, but like public health calls, and that's when they find them slumped in chairs. Just saying, Phil. Just saying.
In the month of December, literally is butt fucking the customer, because what these travel companies do is they will lie to you, and they will say stuff like,
that sounds familiar.
Oh, there was a glitch in the system, and therefore that's why you didn't actually get a confirmed assignment of seating on this vehicle. But now because you...
That sounds really familiar, right, ladies and gentlemen? Oh, well, yeah, you guys did pay for this Patreon goal, and I did say I was going to do it in this month, but things happen, so I'm going to have to push it back. It's just going to have to be delayed. It'll still happen. It's just, I never promised you that it was going to happen in this month. But it will happen. Doesn't that not sound familiar, ladies and gentlemen? Okay. I was just wondering. I'm curious what you guys feel about that. Because that right there gave me a flashback. So I just figured, whatever. Could be deja vu. It's possible. It's maybe nothing. It's probably nothing.
You called us, we'll give you the seat. It's garbage. It's a complete lie. I actually found out this morning when I called, okay? It's a scam. I'm not going to name the company, but this company, that my girlfriend is traveling with, basically told her there were no seats available on the vehicle. That when she gets to the station, okay, then we'll tell you, your seat. I call and I find out, it's a complete lie. That's not the case. The case is actually that they don't assign like a third of the seats in December at all. What they do is they just hope that someone fucks up and doesn't realize they don't have a seat assigned, and they put them on what's called standby. So you basically have to wait and then hope that other people don't fucking show up for this vehicle, and then if they do, you're fucked. Oh, sorry, well, if you look at your contract, it actually says when you buy a ticket for this kind of travel, you're not guaranteed to actually get on that vehicle. We have the right to bump you to an equivalent vehicle at a later time or date. And it's like, what? How the fuck is that fair? Like, I paid just like everybody else. In fact, in this particular case, it was funny because we booked the transportation before she even visited last time. And if you guys remember, the last time I had time off was early October. So this was transportation we had booked for 2.5 months.
Yeah, but it's for Christmas, though. You should have booked that even sooner than that. That's still being lazy on your part. 2 months usually just isn't enough for the holidays. For the summer, he might have been able to get away with that bullshit. But for Christmas, you better think a little bit more outside the box. You better try like 4 months out. You better try. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying. Is like, you better try. 2 months is just not enough, especially not during Christmas, man. Because people will be willing to talk somebody over the phone and proposition them into giving them priority over stuff. It happens all the time. So but that's in the more extremes of it. So, I mean, yet again, I guess it's the holiday season, so Phil should be able to cry. I guess this is what this is all about, really.
They're going to tell us that we're on standby because of a random lottery, because they just hoped that we didn't notice that they didn't assign a seat. It's like, are you fucking retarded? So now you're going to
I mean, they pay their taxes, so they can't be that retarded.
Fuck with me, alright? You're going to fuck with me on this? Like, come on. Now, Reggie
Alright, first off, dude, this isn't Nintendo. This isn't Machinima. You know what I'm saying? This isn't YouTube. This isn't Google. Shut the fuck up. Okay, like, they don't know who you are. You are, quite frankly, the only thing that they give a damn about was the name on the ticket and the name on the credit card. And they didn't give a shit about anything else. You do not have any priority. They do not know who Philip Burnell is. They don't give a fuck about your business license that you got less than a week ago. They don't give a shit about nothing. Just, what makes you think you're so important? I just don't understand. I mean, it's obviously delusion, but what makes you think that you have priority in the real world over everybody else? You sit at home all day and don't do shit. So you don't know anybody there. You don't have a point of contact. You don't even have anybody that you've probably even seen casually. So what makes you think you have any type of, you can just call out of nowhere and think you're special? Like, oh, they're fucking with me. They're fucking with me. What? Explain. Yet again, Phil, this is how the real world works. I understand it's not the delusion where you have certain people in your Scream chat jacking you off and they think you're so great. And they tell you that. And even then, in your own little world, the bubble's starting to burst rather quickly, to be perfectly honest with you. Given how the forums are looking, given how you're bitching and shit in private messages with people, it doesn't look very good over there. It looks like the indoctrination is wearing off. The brainwashing is it looks like it's fading. Just saying. You're not important, Phil. That's the point.
Ace 420 just made an interesting point in the stream chat. He says, well, they would lose billions of dollars per year if they didn't overbook. So unless you want more expensive tickets, you're just going to have to deal with overbooking. Wrong. Here's the deal. You're absolutely right. They would lose billions of dollars.
What? How are you going to be like, wrong? Here's the deal. You're absolutely right. Huh? Let's bring that back. Because that must be some type of retardation that I just heard there. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
All right. You're going to fuck with me on this? Like, come on. Now, Reggie Face 420 just made an interesting point in the stream chat. He says, well, they would lose billions of dollars per year if they didn't overbook. So unless you want more expensive tickets, you're just going to have to deal with overbooking. Wrong. Here's the deal. You're absolutely right. They would lose billions.
What? Huh? Did he not think about what the guy said first and then just immediately agreed with it to deflect? Let's just keep it going. What? You don't respond to a question like that at all. It just makes you kind of, all right, let's just keep going. I'm going to save that one. Fucking A.
The dollar. But what should they do? Instead of putting that cost to the customer, which is not going to work because transportation is already too fucking expensive.
It's been working so far. That's why a lot of them are still in business.
You have to become more efficient. The reason...
Oh, how efficient are you, Phil? It's very funny how you can sit there and comment on everybody else's business, on everybody else's livelihoods, but yet you haven't figured out the formula yourself. And you're still fucking up. But you can tell this multi-million-dollar corporation how they can get shit together. When you yourself can't even get your own life together. Fuck your business. You can't even get your life together. But you can comment, but you can feel like you can comment. Well, I guess everybody has an opinion, but you feel like you can essentially throw shade at somebody else on how their business is being run. Like, you know what the fuck you're talking about. You don't. That's why people like me make shitty ass videos about you.
The airline industry is in dire straits is because from the years of the 1970s throughout the late 1990s, the airline industry had a big boom where everyone wanted to fly everywhere and everything was everyone had excessive money to fly and travel on vacation. And so the airline industry had this...
And gas was cheap, like piss cheap. Let's not forget that. And that and first and foremost, since a lot of those companies were really trying to establish the fact that, hey, this is a comfortable way of traveling, they made everything cheaper so it could do so. You have to kind of allure people in, essentially, with it.
Giant boom, all right? Huge. The airline industry became bloated. They became oversaturated. There were too many airlines. And basically what happened...
People wanted better choices. People wanted more choices and they wanted better choices. It's going to happen in any type of business field. Hence the reason why you're at the bottom of the spectrum as it pertains to Let's Plays, and there are all these other people that just happen to get it right at the top. It's amazing how that happens. I was following a channel. I haven't catched up with him lately, but he only started in like January of this year. Like when I started watching him, he may have had 3,000 subscribers. He's up to 1 million already. That was in January when I saw him. I just took a glimpse at his channel maybe a week ago, and he's over 1 million. And he does very cool Let's Plays, and he's really just sitting back, chilling. He's got some good music in the background. He's talking to the chat. They're having a great time. It's not hard, apparently. And he has 1 million subscribers in a year. You've been doing this for almost 10 years, and you're fighting to hold on to that 180,000. I don't know, Phil. I don't know if it's really just YouTube or Google. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Choices. It's great to have choices. You only became popular because there was only a few of you at the time, and you were pumping out more content than everybody else. Content. So you seemed like someone who was on the ball, and you seemed like a pretty good choice. But once better choices came around, people who had better personalities, who were more entertaining, some flocked over there. It is what it was. Competition is what keeps everything going. Phil, if you were all by yourself when it comes to Let's Plays, like no one else on YouTube did it, just you, I don't know. I mean, not that you have an impact on the video game industry or community anyway, but I very likely doubt you would be popular. I mean, you would be, guess by definition, because you'd be the only one doing it, but I doubt that you would have any real fame. I doubt it. I could see someone wanting to break in just so they had somebody else. Not even because they even want to do Let's Plays. Just so they could bump you out. That's just me, though. It might be just being petty.
What happened was, they didn't have any contingency plan in case something would happen that would all of a sudden make people not want to travel anymore. That's their fault. That's
funny. You don't have a contingency plan either. That's why you're begging to try to get this tax money up. And why you can't pay your house. I don't know. I guess saving money is just not something they do in Connecticut. Or that's just something that they don't do in your family. Or that's just some stupidity that belongs to you. It's your fault that you didn't plan it. I'm just saying, maybe that's just me. It's very possible, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just twisting his words. I doubt it, but it's possible.
Not the consumer's fault. That's their fault as a business industry that they didn't have any fucking contingency plan or any foresight that the actual business conditions could possibly change, all right? It's much like YouTube. YouTube had this big booming time when they were bringing in tons and tons of money because advertisement revenue was at an all-time high. But they had no contingency plan, right? In case advertisers realized, gee, we're not getting what we want out of our ads. Our ads are going on racist and terrorist videos. There's pedophilic comments on YouTube videos and we don't want ads on those videos. They had no contingency plan. So
neither did you. When you've admitted that. When you started YouTube, you jumped in because you didn't have a job and you needed to do something. A couple years in, hey, if the money's starting to slip, you were pushed into another contract and you were scared because you didn't have a contingency plan. You didn't have a backup plan. It was YouTube or that was it. So it's very hard to throw stones when you've made the exact same mistake. And like I said, as it pertains to that industry, it was constantly changing. They didn't know exactly how it was going to play out. You kind of had to play stuff by ear. You can only see so much. But you, Phil, you actually had people who gave a damn about you, who tried to tell you, hey, you should transition over this. Hey, people are starting to do this. Hey, you need to do that if you're going to stay relevant. And you chose not to. You wanted to be you. And there's nothing wrong with being you, to be perfectly honest with you. But at the same time, when the audience demands it, especially in large quantities like that, you should have done it. Just because. You still could have stayed yourself. You could have just changed the method, and you didn't do it. You waited like 4 or 5 years too goddamn late to do it. And then you wonder why you're not getting any growth. You're wondering why the views were going to shit. You're wondering why you weren't making the ad revenue that you wanted to. And then you had to jump over to Twitch. which is what you're doing now. And from what I'm hearing, it's more of a begging fest over there than anything else. Whatever.
Whole bottom falls out under the industry. Same thing happening on YouTube is exactly what happened to the airline industry when in 2001, remember 9/11? Yes, after that huge terrorism attack on New York City and the World Trade Center, as well as the Pentagon, right? When that happened, the entire airline industry fell apart because people didn't feel that it was safe to travel anymore. They thought, oh my God, if I fly, my plane's going to get hijacked by a terrorist. And literally that year, I think they were saying flights declined by like 20 to 30%. I don't know the statistic. I just know it was like appalling. And the whole industry was not fucking ready for that at all. All right.
Actually, what he should mean is the following year. Because yet again, that happened in September and whatnot. It would be expected that no one's going to want to fly for the rest of that year. Especially if they don't have to. He should be talking about the following year, which is when there was a huge dip in flight attendance. Jesus Christ, Phil, try to do some research, man. If you're really gonna try to talk this shit. That's just like that. That's just like you talking about politics. You don't know anything about it, so either brush up on it and try to hold a conversation as best you can, or just don't say nothing. You're not making yourself sound any smarter than anybody else. You're really not. Especially when those people are willing to take a minute or two to do some research.
At all. And the entire bottom fell out of the industry. And therefore, all of a sudden now, the industry was going bankrupt and could we bail them out? There were tons of mergers to try to save these airline companies. Too bad. That's their fucking fault. They should have looked into the industry climate and said, if something like this catastrophic were to happen, what can we do? They didn't.
Wait a second. Were people opposed to plan for a terrorist attack? Who would have thought that anybody would do that? Most of the attacks that had happened prior to that were domestic. So who would have thought that, oh yeah, one day someone might actually go ahead and, actually hijack some planes and do some shit. I mean, I know there were scenarios thrown out, but even then, no one thought that they would pull that bullshit. Now, granted, he actually does make an interesting point. If you go back to what's his name? Was it DB Cooper? I think his name is, and what he pulled years and years ago beforehand. So, I mean, theoretically, he has some merit to what he's saying to a degree, but no one can predict everything. Yes, you be able to go to an airport or to a bus terminal or wherever the case may be and feel safe. Yes. It's a God-given right that everybody should have. But you can't, the scenarios are way too vast. Because none of us think the same. Everybody thinks somewhere different. For example, I'm not going to compare myself to this person, but to myself and then, I don't know, all right, I'm going to compare myself to myself and maybe Theo. Let's say that. Neither one of us, I would say, just watching his videos, that we do agree on a lot of things, especially on the same topic. But we don't hold the same view on everything, which would be interesting to have a conversation with Theo. Actually, it'd be really cool to have a conversation with Theo, because I'd like to pick his brain on some stuff. But it would be interesting to have a conversation, but we don't share the same thoughts. So there are going to be stuff. He would look at a situation one way, and I would look at a situation another way. He may look at one situation and see 4 different paths. I may look at it and only see 2. Or I may see 6. Or I may see 8. Everybody sees everything differently. So even if they had a preventive panel, not everybody can go ahead and cover every scenario that could possibly happen. It just doesn't work that way. If you're a normal person, you're only going to think about scenarios that you've already seen. It's going to be hard to think outside the box. You, of all people, should know that, Phil. You're an uncreative person. You don't know shit about shit. But it's very hard to kind of think outside the box. I wouldn't say it's hard, but you have to have the imagination for it. Most people commonly stick to what they've seen or what they've already heard, which means they've already happened. It is what it is. That's just kind of how it works. Now, you do have your outliers, people who can see beyond what other people can see. But not everybody can do that. And especially in a situation where there isn't a lot of fear, there isn't a lot of tension, you're not going to get that type of paranoia type thinking, as some people say. It's only after the situation happens is when you go ahead and believe anything and everything can happen. But you have to get there first, sadly. And sadly, blood will have to be shed before that happens, when that happens. Sadly. DSP News. Sorry about that, guys.
No preparation at all. They weren't ready for it. The whole industry fell apart, all right? So, in particular, if you're talking planes, which is really the big thing where the overbooking really happens the most, even though it does still happen with buses and train, it's really planes where the problem primarily lies, okay? This is their issue. Okay, so if we don't overbook and do this horrendous practice that bumps customers routinely in December all the time from their flights and it gets them to their destinations late and everyone feels bad because now they're not there for the holidays or they're not there for their holiday celebrations or whatever, they'll lose billions of dollars. Okay, so they lose billions of dollars. So the airline industry, instead of becoming an insanely, ridiculously profitable industry, becomes an only moderately profitable industry. Oh, darn. Oh, shucks. This is the problem, is that we try to make excuses. When you say, oh, well, they're going to pass that cost on to the customer. They will, you're right. They'll raise ticket prices. Why do they raise ticket prices? So they still make ginormous fucking money and dividends on their stocks, so the rich bigwigs at the top of the fucking company can still get their $1 million payoffs. It's not because the whole company is failing. None of these companies are going completely bankrupt. It's because they want to make bajillions of dollars of fucking profit. And it's insane. It's this fucked up economy that we have.
Let me stop there for a minute. Okay, I'm only going to go off what I know, so bear with me on this. I've already explained the whole, how when you have investors and so on and so forth. So, here's the thing. This idiot right here, because he's an idiot, you know what I mean? Because he's a fucking goof, because he acts like a goof, because he thinks like a goof. This idiot here says that, oh, they're only doing it so they can get bajillions of dollars and so on and so forth, so they can line their pockets. And it's true to a degree that that's why you have investors. They're trying to make money. But what he's forgetting is a lot of the profits, a lot of the proceeds, a lot of the residuals go to pushing the industry forward. It goes to advancements in airplanes, in technology, to getting people places fast, getting people to further places faster, safer, much more efficient. A lot of the money goes back into the very industry that makes it. Going back to what I've said before in this video as well as others, you have to spend money to make money. A lot of that money is parlayed back into the industry. Because if you put money back into it, you'll get more money out of it. If you invest now, if you work hard now, things can be easier and way more convenient later. And that's just not just in airplanes. Look at the bullet train system in Japan, for example. And what we're trying to do in the United States to kind of catch up to that. Or in Germany. You know what I'm saying? The industry is built off innovation. And with that innovation, it costs money. You need smart people to be put on the job to figure out what the problems are to make things better. And you need money for that. So yeah, are they stretching the fucking bottom line in the dollar to try to get the most profits that they can? Yes, but it doesn't go into the bigwigs' pockets. A lot of that goes back to the investors, the people who believe in the idea, and that's why they forked over their money. And it goes back to making the industry better in a lot of ways. Now, granted, on this level, most of us won't see that. But if you're someone who has some experience there, you kind of understand how this works. And it doesn't work in just this industry. It works in all industries. That's how it works. Now, Phil, let's talk about what you know about. That's the misappropriation of funds. That's when banks, for example, gave loans to people that they knew were never going to go ahead and be able to pay that money back, and then cried to the government, got paid, and they could have wiped a lot of that slate clean because they got their money back and some. In some cases, I'm not going to delve into that because that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother time. They basically pocketed the money and ran. Sounds a lot like you, Phil. This is what happens when you have someone who has the single-minded goal of just making money. And in turn, he doesn't want to spend it. He doesn't want to spend it on anything. Trust me, if he could shit in a bucket and throw it out in his yard, he would. He would, if it wasn't an inconvenience to him. He won't spend any money whatsoever. He has to hold on to it for his own, I guess, self-approval, for his own self-reflection, for his own self-validation. And that's why his business suffers. And it's always suffered, and it always will suffer. Because he's never willing to put money back into it. And if he does it only when it's convenient to him. He would rather show off his wealth. Now, he didn't have any wealth, but just bear with me. Instead of investing back into himself, back into his business to make him more money. And this is what I've told you, and this is what I said in the last video, maybe the video before. Invest in yourself. You are your best investment. If you invest in yourself, you put yourself in a better position to make more money later on. So if you are someone who's watching this video and you want to try to get an understanding of how life works in any type of way, shape, or form, if the best piece of advice I can give you is always try to be your best. And to do so, you have to invest in yourself. Because if not, then you're going to grow up like Phil, where everybody else has to invest in you and you decide what you feel is good for you and what isn't. Because if he didn't have that money, he would just sit there and loathe about it. Oh, I can't do anything because I don't have the money to change. But when he does have the money to change, he won't do it. This is what happens when someone either wasn't taught or he chose to avoid advice that could have helped him. This is what happens. This is what happens when you believe you understand the world and you don't. You don't have a goddamn clue. But he's scared. He is so scared of saying, I'm wrong, that he would much rather say, you're wrong, and then admit you're right, and then push his narrative, which is his whole MO. Because he doesn't have enough character, he doesn't have enough self-esteem, he has very little self-worth to be like, hey, I was wrong, and I will hear you out. Or, hey, you're trying to give me some advice, let me at least listen to it. He'll hear you, but he's never listening to you. DSP News.
In the United States, where everything is publicly traded and everyone has to have a bottom line of a bajillion-dollar fucking profit, that's the problem here. All right? That's the real problem. So it pisses me off when, I almost get completely, well, I say I, but it's really been myself and my girlfriend, almost get completely fucked up for something that we did months ago. Months.
What about the other people who are in the same scenario? Are you telling me that it was only her that's on that bus or on that train, whatever her method of travel is, that was possibly affected? Is it just really you two, and that's it? Nobody else is being affected by it. Like I said, this is what happens when you live in a bubble and you believe everything affects you. Same concept. And when people say he's just some shitty Let's Player, he's some shitty Let's Player who passes his narrative on to other people. Usually people younger than him. People who don't know no better. And they believe in the narrative. So then they start looking at their lives. They start living their lives with that same type of, well, why is this only happening to me? His comment section proves that. His chat proves that. That's what makes DSP a fucking problem. It's somebody who's a fucking sheep who somehow convinced other sheeps to follow. He thought he's an alpha. He thought he was someone who deserves to have people follow him as a leader, and he's not. He's just as scared and he's just as weak as the rest of them. But because he can talk a good game when he's by himself and he's not confronted by anybody, he feels like he has power. That's why he don't leave his house unless he has to. Because outside of it, he realizes that inside of his house, inside of that room, that's where his seat of power is. And that's it. If he steps outside of that realm, he's weak. He's useless. And he knows it. That's why he can talk that hot shit about these people need to get smacked. These people need to shut the fuck up and stop lying on me. This, that, and the third. They wouldn't do that to somebody in real life. But what happens when you're too scared to put yourself in the position in real life? Then what? You know what I'm saying? Your bodyguards, Brightside, fucking Colts, they can't protect you forever. They can protect you online as best they can. God bless them. But what happens when you have to go out there in real life, Phil? Then what? What happens when you hit somebody who really is fed up and who does want an answer from you? And then what? And what happens when this person is engaging you in conversation and things get to the point where you're starting to get scared because you really don't have an answer for it and you get stupid and you swing on them? Then what? That's when you're on the ground bleeding in a ball and everybody's got their phones out and everybody has that shit online. And then what? You're too old to be this stupid. I'm just saying. You are too old to be this stupid. And for people who don't understand who DSP is, that's fine. But watch his shit. Before you say, oh, he's just some shitty person, he'll die out if you stop watching him, you actually go ahead and watch some of his stuff. And then see what people are trying to talk about. It's not about saving DSP. I think he's beyond that, to be honest with you. I know there's a lot of people, even within the detractor circles, who believe that he could get better, but he won't. It's too hard to. It's too hard for him to try. It's easier for him to do what he's doing now. There are people who really believe that he could get better, and he probably could, but he won't. He's too weak as a person. He's too weak in his character. He can't. He just can't. It's not even a matter of that he won't. It's just I don't think he can. I really don't. And because of that, it's when he says these people behind their keyboard, you know what I'm saying, are these weak cowards and so on and so forth, and they wouldn't do shit about shit. That's coming from the same asshole who's on his couch, who's also behind a screen, who's behind a couple of them actually, and who's pushing this exact same narrative. It's just not the Twitter fingers turning into trigger fingers. That's all it is. He can spit his narrative right into that camera and then think that nothing's going to happen to him. He thinks he's somehow better because he isn't behind his keyboard, which he actually is behind one, and he can spit his narrative. And he thinks he's just so much better. If that's the case, then why don't he go outside in the middle of the day? Do you ever wonder why he doesn't do that? He only goes outside to get gas, to get what he needs for the house, or to get food. And usually that's at night. He very rarely goes out during the day. And the reason why is because he's scared of getting spotted. He's scared of being recognized. It's amazing how he's been there for X amount of years. And does he know any of his neighbors by name? Any of them at all? At least one? At least one person does he know by name. He's lived there long enough that he should know at least half the block. But he don't ever go outside. He looks at everybody as someone that could hurt him if he can't benefit off them. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I don't mean to rant. My bad. Let's finish this up. Sorry about that.
Okay. And now, they're trying to fuck us over. Go fuck yourself. So anyway, I took care of it. I basically called the travel company this morning. And I said, I know you're lying. So, you're going to assign this reservation to a seat immediately. And they did. Immediately, all of a sudden, I was told there's no way you'll get assigned a seat at the station. Okay. All of a sudden, immediately I get assigned a seat because I put up a stink. Funny how that works, right? So anyway.
I guess that's supposed to be his little victory sip, I guess. That's what that's supposed to be.
I digress. I just wanted to tell that story. The reason I'm telling you this story, folks, is because many of you I know are younger. Maybe you have never traveled during the month of December before. Just to warn you, All of these transportation companies during December don't give a fuck. They're going to overbook. They are going to overprice. They're going to do whatever they can to make their bottom line, and they could care two shits if you actually get to your destination. All right? So be careful. And if you get a fishy thing happens, gee, I've traveled this way before and this never happened. All of a sudden, this weird thing happened. Make the phone call. Put up the stink.
Wait a second. Did you just catch that? Where he said that, for you guys that are young and you may be inexperienced, that would lead me to, is that him giving us confirmation that your girlfriend's young and a little bit inexperienced and that's why she couldn't handle the situation? Huh. Well, I already think she's young anyway, but this kind of definitely proves it. Interesting.
Then they'll fucking fix it for you. All right? Don't just trust that, take it for granted that everything's going to be okay. Because the bottom line is, if I didn't make the phone call this morning, tomorrow my girlfriend may have been sitting at that station being told that she's on standby and then get bumped from that, that transportation. And next thing I know, she's supposed to be here tomorrow, middle of the day, and she's not here till midnight or maybe even another day or two going by. Where the fuck is she supposed to stay?
It's very obvious, too, that he's trying to be careful on whether she's going by train or by bus. He's very careful to not let it slip on what exactly is her mode of transportation. It's obviously not by flight. So, he made a big stink about that, but I think he did that as window dressing. But he's being very careful about that. Touche.
Right? Now, what are they going to do? You think they're really going to put her up in a hotel for free? Fuck no. So, that's the point I'm making is, you got to protect yourself in this day and age. These companies are not out to help you. They're out to take your money and then say, oh, well, we already got your money.
Kind of like your taxes.
Yeah, I know. The great U.S. Suomi says, the land of greediness, the great USA. Yeah. Yeah, and that's sad. I try not to be cynical. Like, I'm trying to be happy during this month of December. But when this happened this morning, I was like, I got to spread the word, spread the alarm to everyone. Okay?
All right. And whatever. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you go on that. Yet again, it's Phil kind of perpetuating his bullshit. Good for him. There was really nothing there of any type of real redeeming qualities. To be honest with you, he really doesn't have a clear idea of how business works and doesn't know really what he's talking about. If that doesn't prove it, I don't know what will. And we got a little bit more insight on the girlfriend, to be honest with you. If I had to give you, if you were like, hey, can you give me an idea? I'd say she's young. I would say she's young. She's probably fresh out of high school, or she's maybe in her first or second year of university. Certainly probably not a lot of life experience, I'm guessing. And she doesn't live in the state, I don't think, to be perfectly honest with you. Because Washington isn't, if she lived in the state of Washington, why wouldn't Phil just go and pick her up, for example? So I don't think she lives in the state. How far does she live? I couldn't tell you, to be honest with you. But those are that's just that's the vibe I'm catching. As it pertains to what I think of this relationship up to this far, he's getting ready to repeat him and Panda all over again. That's exactly what that is. I couldn't be any more honest with you than that. He's just repeating it's Panda 2.0 all over again. It's exactly what it is. And hence the reason why he's so desperate to get her there. Get her there. See, this is what I present you, and this is what I'm going to need from you to help us both keep this. That's what I'm guessing is going to happen the moment she goes through those doors. If I had to guess. If I just had to say. If she was older, she would have her own travel plan squared away. And I don't think she is. She's certainly not his age, I should say. You know what I mean? So that's just my guess. But I'm anxious to hear what you guys think down in the comment section below. Tell me what you guys think. What do you make of his his insight into the travel industry, and more importantly about this young lady? Give me your speculations. What do you feel? How do you feel about it? Ladies and gentlemen, this is DSP News. Always late, never breaking, unreliable coverage that you can't count on. A GTG network and productions. And ladies and gentlemen, remember, the world is an extremely scary place out there. Especially when you have people like Phil who thinks he knows what he's talking about in it. So take care of yourselves. This is GTG signing off. in a broadcast.